Good morning, everyone. I wanted to welcome everyone to an implementation toolkit for AAC, Achieving Authentic Communication. Let's talk about our agenda for today. It's also, if you have downloaded the outline for the presentation today, it's a good thing if you follow that outline because it's going to help you keep you on track and maybe answer some of the questions you may have. So the agenda today is communicate. We're going to talk about communication and remind ourselves what communication actually is. We're going to discuss authentic communication and what that looks like. Functions of communication are the reasons why we communicate. And communication partners, that's any and everyone in which the AAC user communicates with or anybody communicates with, and the environments in which we communicate and how they impact our communication. That's in our first half. In our second half, we're going to talk about creating communication opportunities for our AAC users and the importance of that and why we should set forth and create those opportunities for them. And then, of course, along the way, you're going to receive some other tips and tools. So let's look at authentic communication. Just looking at the word authentic, what do you think in your head, what do you think that authentic means? Well, according to Webster, it means real or genuine. Authentic communication is more than requesting and labeling. So if we as verbal communicators, we do not walk into a room and touch the chair and say chair or table, pencil, cabinet, light. Don't do that. Do we? More than requesting, and we don't also walk around all day and every day and say I want, I want, I want, I want, I want. It's more than requesting, it's more than labeling. It's that spontaneous, unique, and efficient communication. So it allows for authentic communication allows for the individual to initiate and to close conversations or topics, and also it allows us to connect with those around us. So it allows us to be active participants in our community. That is authentic communication. So we're going to look at this scenario here, and then we're going to ask a question about the implementation. A 61-year-old man post-stroke is living in an assisted living facility. He obtained a device, and after only a few weeks, he was able to independently use the device to state his name, age, and other personal information. So ask yourself, is this a successful implementation? Well, let's say that we answered yes. It sure was. It was a successful implementation because of the staff's purpose for the device. So the staff viewed the device as a successful as the AAC user met his objectives, meaning he will state information. So the goal of the staff was to address the function of communication of exchanging of information. Let's look at if some of you answered no. No, because the AAC user, that was not his reason for the device. That was not what drove his communication with the device. He already lives in assisted living. He lives there. People know him, and he probably has a ID card or something like that that states all that personal name and information. That's great, and that was a great goal for him because also he'll need when he goes to doctor's visits and things like that. However, what the main drive for this AAC user was to talk to his grandkids. And his grandkids already knew his name, and his grandkids already knew where he lived. And so going around and come in and see him, he's not just, my name is Johnny and I live at Golden Acres and my favorite color is, he's not just saying that, he is able to authentically communicate with his grandkids by telling them that he loves them. The soccer game went this past weekend, talk about current movies, talk about current events, and that was, so yes, it's a success, and no, it wasn't a success. So his main purpose or drive for using the device was to gain and maintain that social closeness. A lot of the times, I get an SLP or a teacher or a parent and that says, hey, I've got the device. Johnny, it has his device. It just came in about a month ago, and he doesn't seem to want to use it. So what can I do to get him to use it? Well, we're going to have to teach him to use this. And so many times we get bogged down with the technology. We have this piece of technology sat in front of us, and for a lot of people, this is the first time they're working with an AAC product. And so they get consumed and overwhelmed by the technology itself. But as communication, as we teach communication, we need to remember that this technology is just a tool for us. So we are teaching them expressive language, social language, and we are using the device as a tool. So this is a tool for them to communicate their thoughts and ideas and their functions of communication. It's their voice. So we're going to have to remember that it is the people and their interactions between them that must be our main focus. So take the focus off of technology and put the focus on communication. And remember that this technology is just a tool to achieve that. So what is communication? Let's look at this. We have functions of communication, or the reasons why we communicate. We have environment of communication, which is where we communicate, and we have communication partners. Communication partners is anyone with whom we interact and so talk to or communicate with. As you see, these arrows are going round and round, and they show an interconnection with each other. They are all dependent on each other to achieve communication. And we're going to take a look at that. Yes.
Do you have anything open behind your presentation? Your speech is going in and out, so the audio sounds a little warbled at times.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on. Whoops. Well, I'm online, so that's the only thing. I have my PowerPoint and go to training. That's it.
Okay. Can you close the email and let's try that? We might have to have you call in if it doesn't clear up.
All right. Okay. You want me to try again?
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. And I'm standing right in front of my computer. I'm not walking around or anything, so it probably is something going on with either the internet or the connection or something. So we'll try it again. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, let's put it back here. What is communication? And we're going to talk about the function or the reasons why we communicate. And the functions of communication are we are requesting and stating information, and we communicate relationships, to learn, to share, and to manage our healthcare needs or manage our lives, and to participate successfully as full citizens of society. Functions of communication. We're going to talk about the four functions or three functions of communication. Communicate wants and needs, exchange information, develop social closeness, and fulfill that social etiquette. But today what we're going to do is we're going to combine the last two and into one and put it as social closeness and etiquette. And I'm going to check in to see how the audio is going.
It's still going in and out.
Okay.
If you want to switch to call-in and see if when you show video, you'll have to put your phone near the speaker on your computer.
Okay. Let's see, how do you?
If you go to the audio in the control panel and you switch to phone call, you'll see the phone number and the pin to get in. Thanks for your patience while we work through this.
Okay, I am on the phone and I need to know if this is working. Hello?
Sorry, I muted myself. Go ahead and let's keep going and see how this works.
Okay. And Lisa, is this the one we're recording? This
It is.
awesome.
It is.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to have to speak loudly. It's a little bit soft.
Okay. All right, here we go. Can you hear me now? That sounds okay. Here we go. Functions of communication. We said communicate wants and needs, and exchange information, and social closeness and etiquette. So let's look at communicate wants and needs. Just your basic communication of wants and needs is requesting objects. And let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so the video's not working. This is so great. All right. Now let's try that again. Good job. Okay, so that was Meredith, and she communicated a basic want. She wants to eat pasta. That is requesting objects. You can also communicate wants and needs by requesting help, requesting attention, requesting an activity, request permission, direct an action, direct to stop, accepting and rejecting something. And let's look at the basic direct an action.
Whenever it's time for me to turn the page, I want you to say go. Okay? Sure thing.
So there you have the individual directing an action to the SLP to go, and she just used the word go to say turn the page. The next function of communication is exchange information. That means that it's not only answering questions, it's asking questions. So Meredith, before they requested an object, she said, I want to eat pasta. Now she's going to exchange information by asking a question. So what she did there is she asked, first of all, remember she requested the object, and then she wanted to exchange information by asking if it was ready yet. Exchanging of information also looks like sharing and showing objects, discussing upcoming or past events, stating an opinion, I don't like or I like, confirming or deny, and labeling. Let's look at Drew as he states personal information.
Hi, my name is Miss Vicky. What is your name? Oh, can you tell me again? Okay, I didn't get it. So then what would you do? Oh, great. Yeah. Oh, Drew. Nice to meet you. Well, like I said, my name's Miss Vicky. Yeah. Oh, where do you go to school? School. At middle school? Mm-hmm. What's the name of your middle school? Didn't quite get that. I go to school at Freeburg Middle School. Freeburg. I think we might have Freeburg. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. Freeburg. Would you like to ask us a couple questions? Sure. Okay. Well, who are you going to ask? Nikki. Richard. Amanda. Amanda. Okay. Okay. And then this is your information, and then up here are the social questions. Yeah. You want to this Amanda? Yeah. Okay. We're going to ask her.
Where do I go to school? I don't go to school anymore. I graduated.
She's all finished with school. Okay, so maybe I think she probably has a job now.
What kind of work do I do?
Look at her. You're asking her, so listen. Not at me.
I know. Hi, good morning. I work for Saltillo, which is the company that makes your NovaChat device. I'm a speech therapist like Miss Nikki and Miss Richards. Pretty cool, huh? Huh.
Cool. Do you have another question for her? Oh, okay. We can ask her one or two more questions and then we'll move on. Okay.
Ooh, what's my favorite TV show? I like to watch, you know what, Silly? I like to watch Jeopardy. Have you ever seen Jeopardy? Yeah. Hey, what's your favorite TV show?
Batman.
I don't understand that quite. I'm sorry, bud.
Okay. That's all right.
Excuse me, do. Those are good ones. Those are your favorite movies. What's your favorite TV show? Batman and Spider-Man. Very cool.
Okay, so that was Drew stating personal information. But let's take a look at the function of exchanging information. So not only did Drew state personal information, but he asked questions. He didn't know Amanda, and that was Amanda's first time there. And what he did was he asked her questions. And when he was asking her questions, in turn, what he was doing, he was gaining that social closeness and etiquette. So gaining social closeness and etiquette is greeting and closing. It's your manners. It's teasing and taking turns, expressing feelings, play games, gossip and comment, and also tell jokes. I had a client just the other day who was driven by the function of communication of gaining social closeness. He was very social, and he had a great sense of humor, so he would use the joke page a lot to communicate with his peers and adults around him to gain that social closeness. Let's look at this individual telling jokes.
No other animal has. What? Kittens. What did the dentist call his x-ray? What? What? Oh, you messed it up. Oh. Toothpicks. Oh. Now you tell one. Yeah, I'm supposed to tell a joke? I don't know any jokes. I mean, you. Okay. Well, now here, and that's not joke. Yes. Knock, knock. Who's there? Dwayne. Dwayne who? Dwayne the bathtub. I'm drowning.
So there you see this individual. She obviously loves to tell jokes. So it looks like maybe her function of communication or her reason to communicate, what drives her communication, is gaining that social closeness with people. So if you are wanting your individual to achieve all functions of communication, we've got to look at their vocabulary. We have to look at what vocabulary they have access to. So if we are wanting to teach them to request objects or express wants and needs, we want to see if that particular vocabulary, in order to do that, is in their file or they have access to. Same with exchanging of information and gaining that social closeness. We have to make sure that what we are expecting them, or what words we're expecting them to use to communicate, are actually in their device. So some vocabulary is spelling, and spelling is what it is. You spell words to communicate. Some communication has pre-programmed sentences. You saw Drew, he was in our social, he went into our social page, then into personal, and we had pre-programmed sentences stored for him, and that's for a little bit more rapid communication in those situations. We also have phrases. So Meredith, I think it was Meredith, was requesting objects and exchanging of information by using phrases. I want to eat pasta. And then we have individual words, access to individual words. So we can use our individual words to comprise a communication. For example, I want to eat pasta. And then, of course, there's vocabulary systems that have a combination of all of those. So thinking about your AAC users' vocabulary that you're working with now, think about how that is organized. All right, so our first activity we're going to do, you have your activity worksheet, and on the left-hand side, I want you to fill in the list, the first 10 things you communicated today. And it doesn't really have to be today, it could be yesterday or, you know, some other time, but think of the first 10 things you communicated in a particular situation. And here's what mine looks like. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to do that. 2-3 minutes. Okay, so I will give you about 1 more minute to finish this worksheet, to finish this part of the activity worksheet. Okay, all right, so let's keep going and let's move forward here. All right, now what I want you to do is I want you to look at the first 10 things that you communicated, and I want you to put a check mark or an X under the column of the function of communication that was happening there. So was it wants and needs, exchanging of information, social closeness, and etiquette? It can be one, or it can be all, or it can be two. So I'll give you a second to do that, and this is what mine looks like. As you can see on mine, I addressed all the functions of communication. So what I did with social closeness is I greeted and I closed. I commented, I expressed feelings, and exchanging of information. I confirmed and denied. I requested information. And let's see, in the wants and needs, I requested objects and an activity. Also, when you're looking at this, I want you to be thinking in the background where you were and what was happening. So this is what the results of my tally looks like. As you can see back here that I have 3 under wants and needs, 6 under exchange information, and 6 under social closeness. And that's what it looks like for those of you that love pie charts. There you go. Let's take a look at functions of communication over time. According to Coonley and Light, the works of Coonley and Light, the function of communication changes over time. So you're going to see for the infant and young child, the interactions to fulfill wants and needs and develop social closeness are predominant here. So that you see that the social closeness and wants and needs are the big part of the pie. And then moving through school and vocational activities, the older child or adult, they give greater attention to interactions which involve the exchange of information and to those which promote social closeness. And for the older adult, the need for social closeness may decrease, and the expression of needs and wants may continue to play an important role depending on their independence. So let's think about your AAC user. And while you're thinking, so right here, I want you to picture your AAC user. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about the functions of communication in which you want to help them achieve. So wants and needs, exchange of information, social closeness. So let's say that I wanted my individual to be able to greet peers. That's that social closeness and etiquette. So what words do I want him to have access to achieve that? Hi, how are you? What's up? Guess what? Then I want my individual to be able to comment. And the commenting, of course, is social closeness and exchange information. So I like that. That's cool. Cool beans. Nobody says cool beans anymore, but we have it in there. Then directing an action. You go, I do it, turn it on. And requesting objects. Play ball. I eat cookie. I want that. So thinking about your AAC user and what we want them to be able to achieve, how we're going to get them to achieve authentic communication. So wants and needs, requesting objects. Exchange of information, that's stating information and commenting and confirming. Social closeness, that's greeting peers. Okay. And for the sake of time, we're going to move forward. So we looked at what is communication, and we talked about the functions or the reason, what drives us to communicate. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the environment in which we communicate. This is how and where we communicate. So when we are in an environment, we're going to ask ourselves questions: the who, what, where. Who is communicating? What is happening? What is heard? What is seen? What is felt? Where are things located? Where is that device? Where is the AAC user? Where are his or her communication partners located? And where are the objects? So let's consider this environment. We have our AAC user right here down on the floor, and it looks like he's playing blocks with a peer. What else is happening in the environment? Who else do we see? Well, we see the teacher, and we see other peers that are off to the side doing work. Where are the objects? They're on the shelf, ready for him to get whenever he wants. And he has the blocks in front of him. Where is the AAC device? It's up on the shelf. So many times I have walked into classrooms when I was in the schools, and I heard the word, "Get out your device, speech is here." Or I have asked, "Where is his device?" "Oh, it's in the cabinet." So I considered the environment, and what I did was I moved that device to the individual and requested that he have it at all times. So who, what, where. Let's look at this environment. Here is our AAC user right here, and it looks like they're at a restaurant. And what is happening? Who, what, where? What is happening? Well, she's ordering from a menu. Who are the communication partners? Right now, it looks like it's the waiter, but she also has another communication partner that's sitting across from her. And where is the device? It's in her purse. It's down below her and in her purse. So let me ask you this. Authentic or real communication. It gives us ourselves the ability to order a pizza over a hamburger or to state, I don't like something. Yes, she could point to the menu, to the waiter, and communicate what she wants to eat. That's great. However, what if she was allergic to onions and she didn't want onions? How is she going to tell that by just pointing at the menu? So what she needs to do, she needs to get that device out. She needs to put it up in front of her. And if we're concerned about it's a quiet restaurant, I believe that most waiters and waitresses know how to read. So she could have her device turned down and the individual, the communication partner, can just read the speech display bar. Okay, so remember when I told you to, when you were doing this activity, I asked you to think about where you were when you were communicating. Now let's go back to that worksheet, and you filled in what you said, and you addressed the functions of communication. Now I want you to go in there, and on the next column, I want you to put what was going on in your environment when you were communicating. And people have had different environments, such as breakfast with friends, a car ride to the training, conversations with their boss, etc. So be thinking of the environment, what was happening while you were communicating. And while you're doing this, and when you finish, I want you to look at this worksheet, and I want you to look in the environment in which you were communicating, and think about how your communication would change if you were meeting a friend at a restaurant or playing with your child. So this is a great way to get you thinking about how the environment affects what we say. Moving forward. So ask yourself these questions. How did your environment impact what and how you communicated? And what things prompted you to communicate in that environment? Addressing the three aspects of communication, we discussed functions or reasons of communicating, environment, places of where we communicate. Now, let's take a look at communication partners. A communication partner is anyone with whom a person using AAC may interact. So we know that communication is a two-way street. Communication requires a sender and a receiver. Communication partners can be anyone. It can be a parent, it can be a teacher, it can be peers, it can be someone in the community. It can be anyone, like I said, with whom a person using AAC may interact. Let's ask ourselves the age-old question: if a tree falls in the woods, does it still make a sound? Well, if a person is talking in the woods, is it still communication? So you have a person talking in the woods. Is that still communication? No, because remember I said that communication requires a sender and a receiver. It's a two-way process. Let's discover the importance of a communication partner. 8 of 10 most frequently reported reasons for device abandonment were related to partner training and support issues. Well, how many times have we heard someone say, well, I don't know how to use this, or I don't know where to find things? We have to ask ourselves, as a communication partner and advocate for this AAC user, have we trained and supported the other communication partners within his environment? We know that the role of communication partners is crucial for achieving positive outcomes for people who use AAC. Partner roles. What is our role as a communication partner? And these roles may vary depending on the communication partner themselves. So assisting in operational components, being an advocate. So when we walk into a situation and our individual is not using their device or not using their AAC, we advocate for them to be able to have access to that. We're also, you guys here attending the training, you're being an advocate for your individual right now. Another role of a communication partner is to establish goals, identify barriers, and to monitor progress. Of course, a role of communication partner is to communicate and interact. So when we are communicating and interacting with our individual, we need to communicate in the same modality as they are. So if they are communicating with a device, then you communicate to them with their device, with a device. If they're using scanning, you use scanning. If they're using the head point, you can use the head point. I was with an individual last week who gets excited actually when people use his AAC. He finds that people are really interested in talking to them, and not only when we communicate in the same modality, we're actually modeling for them as well. Keeping in mind that if we are going to communicate in the same modality, we've got to learn that vocabulary. And if we learn it, we've got to use it, and then we have to teach it. Speaking of learning and teaching the vocabulary, if you were to walk into a piano lesson, and let's say I was your instructor for the piano lesson, and you walked in and this is your first lesson, and I sat you down at the piano and I put a piece of music in front of you and I said, okay, get to work, let's play, let's hear what you got. If you don't know how to read the music and play the piano, how are you going to play for me at that moment? I am there to teach you. So naturally, I'm going to have to know how to read music and play the piano. Another role of the communication partner is to model. This is very, very important, and it is crucial for the success of our users. So let's look at a neurotypical verbal child and how we communicate with them and how we teach them language and communication. As a communication partner, we verbalize, and then the the individual is able to verbalize back to us. So they are able to say the word and use the word and therefore create that communication. So for example, if you have a toddler or an infant or child that is wanting a parent to pick them up, they look up, they raise their hands, and they expect to be picked up. Well, what we do is we model for them. You go, up, oh, you want up, and we pick them up, and we hug them and love them, and then we put them down, and then they have the opportunity to use the word up next time, speak it and use it. But with our individuals using AAC, it is a lot different. The communication partner verbalizes. We cannot expect our communicator using AAC to talk back, right? Just use the device and then you can have communication. No, what we need to do is communicate to the partner by modeling, and then in turn that allows our AAC user to use the word, and that would be equal to communication. Let's look at numbers for aided language stimulation. Let's talk about numbers. 50 to 125 is the number of models of words or word sequences using the user's device before seeing the student use the word later on by himself. 50 to 125 models of words. Let's look at 500. This is the number of times a child just beginning to talk hears a word before it is part of his or her active vocabulary. It's a big number. So what do I model? You can model what you're saying to them. So I was with someone yesterday, actually, and I gave this presentation. And after the presentation, I saw her working with her client, and she was asking questions on the device. So she was modeling how to ask a question, and then she would give the device to her individual, and he was able to answer the question. So they were able to exchange of information by asking and answering questions, but you have to model that first. You have to show them how to do that, and that's what she was doing. You can model to them what they could say. So let's say they're in a situation and they're upset about something or they're mad. You use that opportunity of modeling what they could say. You could be with the individual, get out the device, and say, hey, Johnny, I realize you're upset. What you could say is, I'm mad. Or if someone tells a joke and everyone's laughing, you can model, you could say, that's funny. Let's take a look at this basic modeling.
Wow. Turn. Now whose turn is it?
All right, you saw that the SLP there, she modeled my turn. And therefore, she took a turn and she asked, whose turn is it? We can model syntax and pragmatics. I also want to address this issue too. A lot of the times, we have the expectation of our individuals to put complete sentences. I want to go to the store, or I want to eat cookies, and we get bogged down with that. Let's talk about functional communication. So if the individual says eat cookie, of course we're going to honor that and we're going to accept that. But we could model to them, eat more cookies, or eat cookie please. We are modeling what they could say and using correct syntax and pragmatics. So that's just a little soapbox I get on, because we're requiring our AAC users to do these whole complete sentences grammatically correct and syntax, and whereas their language level may not be there right now. So we need to model at their language stage. We also model mistakes and repair strategies. Yesterday, when we were on with this particular individual, we went on a vocational outing where the person was responsible for going into this muffin store and saying, "Hello, I am the muffin man. May I take your order?" And what he had to do was he had to start at his home page, go to groups, more groups, and then it takes him to his muffin man page. So what I saw happening was they were modeling how to get there, but they weren't allowing him to do it himself or to repeat back to them or follow the sequence. So they were modeling mistakes and repair strategies and operational use, but we got to remember that we model, we have to expect. Going back to model at the client's language level, be sure to do that, and model in his or her access method. What can I use to model? You can use a companion device. You can use the client's device. You can make a low-tech version of the client's vocabulary. So we have flipbooks that are available online in our resources on the Saltillo website. You can use the chat editor to do that, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But you can create low-tech versions of the individual vocabulary and be able to model using that. You can use the iPad with the Touch Chat app or chat editor. So communication partner roles, we said assist in operational components, advocate, establish goals, communicate, interact, model, and create opportunities. It is our job as a communication partner to seek and create opportunities to communicate. So in the first half, we discussed the functions. What is communication? The functions, the environment, and communication partners, and how they are all interdependent upon each other. And we also discussed communication partners, and it is a communication partner plays such a large role in the three elements of communication. So creating communication opportunities, arranging the environment to help communication. What are communication opportunities? Well, they're any situation in which someone could communicate. So if there's a sender and receiver, that's an opportunity to communicate. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I want to check with the audio, and if somebody wants to put in the chat screen how everything's doing.
Audio is pretty good.
Okay. All right. Communication opportunity is any situation in which someone could communicate. We have to make sure when we're creating these communication opportunities, we have to make sure that they are authentic and motivating, meaningful, and age appropriate. I give the example for age appropriate when I was practicing in the schools. There were days that I would go from a elementary campus to the high school campus and work with transitional students. So what activities I would use with my little bit at the elementary level, I wouldn't necessarily use with my high schoolers, right? Because it's not really age appropriate. So we don't have to do bubbles the rest of their lives, people. We can do other things. So we can create opportunities that are meaningful and motivating. I had a kiddo that I worked with in transition, and he loved wrestling. And I thought that was great because I was interested in wrestling too. So what I did is I brought in a wrestling magazine, and I found that very motivating for him. It meant something to him, and it was age appropriate. So what we did is we just flipped through the magazine and we communicated and discussed and exchanged information of what we saw, what we liked. We commented on things, and his language level was not high. So what I would do is I would communicate at his language level. I like that. I have that. So we were using a motivating, meaningful, and age-appropriate activity. Who creates those opportunities? Well, the communication partners do. And when we're creating these opportunities, we have to, once again, take the focus off that technology and put the focus back on communication. So remembering that technology is just a tool, it is the people and their interactions that are communication. So why do we do this? Why do we create opportunities? We have found that AAC users have fewer opportunities to communicate. We know that the AAC users we know that people in general, are more likely to communicate when they have a reason for doing so. Typically, what we see now is when there are opportunities, they focus on requesting and labeling the I want, or labeling chair or something like that. And there are results of closed-ended questions. Do you like this? Yes or no? I had a client last month that I went to see. She was 14 years old, cerebral palsy, and she had the only communication that she had access to for her during her lifespan at that time was a yes, no. That's it. A yes, no. So we need to think about that. Do we want that individual to go through life answering yes, no questions? Is that how we communicate? Is that truly authentic communication? No, it's not. So we need to take those closed-ended questions out and put other things in. All right, let's look at Ari here. He is your typical 23-month-old, and he's eating a snack. Watch this video, and while you're watching it, I want you to do the who, what, where, okay? Who, what, where. Look at his environment and ask your questions. Who the communication partners are, what are his functions of communication, look at his environment and what's happening, and then try, if you can, keep track of the number of communication opportunities.
What? You need more muffins? You're happy? Two muffins? Oh, so hungry boy. Let's go. Oh. Don't want to go in the park. What about home? You would stay home. Don't want to go bye-bye. What are you going to do? You going to play? What's Mama going to do? I'm going to stay home too? Okay. Daddy's at work. And Mama's home. When will Daddy come home? No, Daddy's not home. Mima's home.
Oh, in the sky. You don't see the airplane? Outside. Daddy sees the airplane? Outside? Ari sees a house? Outside. Look, Mommy, what is that? It's chicken? I thought you were eating a muffin. You heard it? It flew away. Oh no. Okay.
All right, looking at that video, and while you were watching the video, you were asking the who, what, where questions, and you were trying to maybe tally the number of communication opportunities that Ari had. So during that time, the functions of communication that were happening were requesting, confirming and denying, accepting and rejecting, commenting, ask questions, relay past events. He directed action to gain attention, and he also answered questions. Who were the communication partners? Well, we know that it was his mom, and what did she do? She put the muffins out of reach for him, even though he had his drink there. She put the muffins out of reach to where he had to request muffins. But what else she did was she modeled. She affirmed his communication by repeating it back to him, and then she modeled what he could say. The mom was close and at eye level, and of course that food was out of reach. So in that 3.5 minute video, how many communication opportunities do you think Ari had? He had 46 communicative turns in 3.5 minutes. And this is your typical neurotypical verbal child at 23 months. And he had 46 communicative turns in 3.5 minutes. And remember, I told you that our individuals who use AAC don't have as many opportunities as that. So we must create those opportunities for them. So how many opportunities do we need? Numbers again. 36,500. That is the number of hours a typical 9 to 12-year-old has been exposed to and immersed in oral language. 36,500. Look at another number. 701. This is the number of years it will take an AAC user to have the same experience. This is usually where I get people's attention more than anything, is when you put it in perspective like this, that the importance and why the importance of creating those opportunities relies on us. So how many do we need? How many do we need? Well, we need 200. And don't freak out at that number, because one activity can equal 5 to 10 opportunities to communicate. So let's get started looking at that. You could select an activity in which to create the opportunity. We got to make sure, once again, that it's motivating and that it's brief and occurs 3 to 4 times a week. It elicits communication from typical peers, and it's reasonable to complete and support. The individual that I was talking about, the vocation, he, in school, he is in charge of going to the teachers in asking for their coffee order for the next day. And so he goes in, he says, "Hi, how are you? May I take your coffee order?" They say their coffee order. But not only is that an opportunity for him to use his device, use his AAC and communicate and ask questions, but also what he could do is engage in a short conversation. And so what we can do is we can model, "Hey, James, what you could do is you could ask Miss Reed, how is your day? How was your day? What are you going to do tonight?" Something like that that will engage that social closeness. So that opportunity to communicate is crucial, and you have at least 5 opportunities in that activity. You should have this as one of your handouts, the Look, Plan, Do. And this is great to have. And once we go over this, you'll see why. But I have a lot of SLPs and teachers and caregivers that have just a blank one out to where they can look at it and reference what needs to be happening in that environment and how we need to create that opportunity. But let's take a look. Look. So look, plan, do. So look at the environment. Okay. Plan on the communication partners, and we're going to set the stage for success. So who is communicating? What is already happening step by step? Well, the teacher, this is just an example. The teacher announces snacks, students wash their hands, students sit down. So that's what's already happening in the environment. So where are the things located? Where is that device? Where is his communication partner or partners? And where are the materials in which they need or want? Now we're going to do plan. We've already looked. Now we're going to plan for opportunities. And we're going to plan for opportunities by modifying the environment, verbalizing communication, figuring out what your client could say. Be sure to look across functions of communication and making sure that you are addressing those. So modifying the environment by moving things out of the way, put materials in an opaque bag, have things up on a shelf, and only give small amounts. Involve those peers. That is so important because those peers are modeling language to our individual. We need to determine what the client or the student could say. We need to target a variety of communication functions. So like I said, be sure to look for those and make sure you're targeting at least 2 or 3. We need to consider what his typical peers are saying during this time, and we need to consider their language level. And then for that more rapid communication, we could consider using words or pre-stored phrases. Another thing we could do is use the choosing vocabulary activity first worksheet. So we have we select an activity, and we are going to figure out what words we want them to use to communicate feelings or action words, words to request, describing words. And this is what a completed one looks like. So the activity was bubbles. So I have planned that I want my individual to use words to initiate or request reoccurrence. So go, my turn, more. I want my individual to use words to comment and interject. Uh-oh, like it, fun. Words to negate or express secession, don't want, all done, stop. So we're going to do, so we looked and we planned, and now we're going to do. We're going to help our client communicate. In order to do that, remember, we've got to know that vocabulary. We have to model for them the vocabulary, provide that feedback. So look at the environment of the activity, plan for the opportunities, and just go and do it. Once we've done that, we need to evaluate, when that activity is completed, we need to look back and evaluate how that went. How did that go? And we've all, as SLPs and communication partners, we have planned a communication opportunity by planning an activity, and it totally bombed. So what do? We take a look back and we ask ourselves the question, okay, what went wrong here? Was it meaningful and motivating? Was it age appropriate? Were people modeling? Was I modeling? And did the other communication partners know their roles? All right. Other tips and tools. This is the last part of our presentation for today, and I'm going to give you other tips and tools. I'm going to show you a chat editor capture feature. You can save message and the chat corner. So chat editor has what we call a button capture. And it's, for those of you that don't know what chat editor is, it is a free download from our website, and it is what we call a software emulator. So you have the ability to load your individual vocabulary file into this editor, and you can do editing and saving and backing up. But another feature it has is the button capture. And it captures the button sequences for use in any document that has copy and paste abilities. We can use the capture button to create visual support. So button sequence. So instead of labeling light switch, we can put beside the light switch, I turn it on. A visual reminder in the environment to say hello for greeting and closing. We can also highlight buttons and highlight our target vocabulary. We can hide a lot of vocabulary and only show a few. That creates more success for learning. So chat editor button capture. You can use the capture button, create your button sequence, and then you can copy it to a clipboard. And that means you can cut and paste, or you can paste it into a Word document. And that's what that will look like. So you can create tons of materials for your individual. You can create books, and you, like I said, label your environment. You can make flashcards, recipe cards, all of that good stuff. And if you want to learn more about our chat editor, you can go on our website at saltillo.com, and I believe Lisa posted that resource in our chat. And you can go in there, and you can also watch a video tutorial on chat editor, and you can also attend a webinar like you're doing today on the things you can do using chat editor. It's a great resource. And there you go. For more information, you just go to saltillo.com/webinars. And I think there's a recorded webinar even on chat editor. So, looking back at what we've discussed today in regards to authentic, true, genuine communication and how we can get our individuals to achieve that by creating the opportunities, by modeling, by recognizing the important role of communication partners, by recognizing the environment and asking ourselves who, what, where, and how we can arrange that environment to achieve success for our individual. And so when we're doing that, we're looking back, don't forget that achieving authentic communication takes time and resources. And hopefully I gave you some resources today that you can take back. And also, you've got to remember that it's your role to train other communication partners. Remember what I said with the device abandonment issue goes back to lack of support and training. All right, this is a time when we open up the webinar for questions. So if you want to ask a question, you can type it in the message box, and we would be more than happy to answer for you. A question was asked about the recorded webinars. Oh, okay. We're recording webinars in January. So we're supposed to be recording this one, guys, but it looks like I might have to do a redo because of our technical difficulties. And I apologize for that, and thank you so much for your patience and understanding. No, the chat editor is not available on iOS. Yes, there are a couple of webinars that are already recorded webinars that are already finished. But like I said, we may have to do a redo of this one. And remember, unfortunately, we have 10 minutes, or fortunately, we have 10 minutes left in the presentation, and you must stay online the full time in order to receive those credits. So this is definitely a time that you could, ask any questions that you may have. All right, Kim, you asked, what should I do if my son gets caught in a loop of just pressing buttons on his device? Do you mean by just randomly pressing buttons or repeatedly pressing a button? Kim, you can, there you go. Just random, okay. So do you think that he's paying attention and attending to the device as he's randomly touching pictures? Could it be somewhat of an exploration on his part? If not, then we need to possibly hide some buttons that he has access to. We could make it to where we can adjust the sensitivity of the device to where it requires him to maybe touch the button for a couple more seconds than normal and then lifting up. I think it is, oh, okay. And then, so those are things that we can possibly do. Another thing is to just keep the focus on activities for now till he gets the connection of communicating with that device. Could you possibly give him something? I had an individual one time that loved string. I mean, it was stimming on a string, a piece of string, and he did start stimming on the device. So what we did is we gave him a string in his hand, and he was able to stim on that, have that string, and also use his device, so he wasn't stimming on the device. So it's something you can look at. I see that Lisa posted that there are 2 chat editor courses Explore Chat Editor, Saltillo's companion software. And then the second one will be tomorrow. Okay, Kim, I read your response. That's a good idea. Ah, that makes sense. Try those things because especially increasing the sensitivity on the device where he must touch that button for a couple more seconds, and then once he lifts off, it says something, and that may put the focus back on what the button actually does or says for him. That was a good question, Kim. Thank you. Here is my contact information, and I service Texas. I'm your representative for the state of Texas, so you can email me at any time. And if you are not in Texas and you want to find your representative, all you need to do is go to saltillo.com, and a button says Find My Representative, and that will take you through the steps of finding them. Well, once again, thank you so much and for attending today. I really appreciate it, and we really appreciate it. And hopefully I have given you some tools and tips to use to help your individual achieve authentic communication. And once again, thank you so much for your patience with the technical difficulties. All right, thank you everyone, and have a great day.